Hey there, welcome back to Sound Just Like a Pro. My name is William, and today is special. I'm going to take a break from gear reviews and telling you my thoughts on new equipment, and I'm going to jump into my computer with you, and I'm going to show you how I did vocal effects for the intro of Let's Groove by Earth, Wind & Fire, and all of the low percussive vocal stuff in Uptown Funk. Now, I play with a tribute band that plays anything from classic rock to classic pop, some funk, and then even some modern stuff and 90s alt stuff. Really, it's basically just like a wedding cover band. And we have a gig coming up, and we're adding Uptown Funk, and we're adding Let's Groove into our repertoire of songs. And those songs aren't really what they are without those two things, without the do-do-do thing in Uptown Funk, and then the kind of vocoder part in Let's Groove. And we're going to do both of those songs routing individual isolated mics into my laptop. And I'm running Logic, and I pulled up some just stock effects that came with Logic Pro. I didn't want to do anything fancy because if you don't have anything fancy, you're not going to know how to recreate it using, if I was to use like Waves plugins or something. And I do use Waves plugins in my home studio, but on my laptop, I just have the run-of-the-mill Logic Pro X on the MacBook Pro. And so I wanted to do that because we're going to have that on the stage live. I'm going to be routing a couple of SM58s into an interface, probably the Zoom F8N Pro, right beside the laptop. And we're going to have a couple of people doing those parts. And we're going to route it in through the effects to emulate the vocoders and the doublers that they have in the studio recordings of those tracks. But before we get into any of that, I want to give you a free gift. It's a book that I've written called EQ Basics, Your Blueprint to a Better Mix. It's almost every vocal type or every instrument that you'll ever mix. And what we've done is isolated the fundamental frequencies of each of those instruments and voices. And we've given you exactly what frequency that is and all the harmonics to look for on those frequencies as well. And it's a paint by numbers approach to equalization. There's no guesswork, there's no sweeping, there's no scrolling. There's just find the number on your track, boost it, cut it to taste, and it should sound awesome. It's basically the last guide you'll ever need for equalization, and I want to give it to you at doitjustlikeapro.com/EQ book. But let's jump into the computer. So here we are inside the computer. Forgive the fan noise. This laptop does ridiculous things, and the sound, or the fan, kind of disrupts a lot of things. But here we are. We have down here, we have the intro to Let's Groove. And up here we have all of the, not all of the, but the do-dos for Uptown Funk. So what we've done here, let me just actually play you the dry tracks. Now this is just me holding an SM58 kind of with a loose jack. So it's unfortunate that you'll also hear some crackling, like handling noise. So what I have done here is I've turned off all of the effects, just so you'll hear the dry run, and it's pretty gross. So as a matter of fact, I will route it back to the stereo output here for a second. So you're literally bypassing all the buses. This is the dry, kind of terrible sounding track. This is just me holding it just a few minutes ago, recording it. Do 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 do. So you can hear some handling noise in there. Do 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 do. There it is. Do. So what I normally do before I add anything that's going to boost the signal, I always put a limiter right here on the end of the track. But I don't actually do anything with it other than limit the output, because I'm trying not to blow anything in my speakers or ruin anything. So what I always do is make sure it won't clip going out no matter what I do. I don't know if that's the right thing to do, but it's what I do. So the thing about the do's in Uptown Funk is it's kind of percussive, like it's almost like a drum section as well. And if you get our book, EQ Basics, you'll see my approach to equalization is there's always a tonal element of the track, and there's always the air element. So like you want to hear the clicking of like your tongue against the roof of your mouth for the do's and stuff like that, because it's just like a kick drum at that point. You want to hear the do, like the low end, but you also want to hear that basically it's like the sound of the batter hitting the bass drum and then the tone of the bass drum itself, but it's your voice. So to accomplish that, we treat it kind of like a kick drum, kind of like percussion. So we put a gate on there first. So let's play it there.
Do 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 do.
So then we turn on the gate.
Do 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 do.
So you hear how it goes from the noise to absolute silence, the noise to absolute silence. And so then we want to add in an equalizer. Actually, let me show you first. I'll show you what the gate actually did. So we'll do that. So it's the preset. It's the tighten up preset on the gate on Logic. So what you'll do is go there. You'll navigate to dynamics. You'll go to noise gate, stereo, because we're going through a bus. As a matter of fact, I'm being crazy because I forgot to route it back through that bus. So if you've hated me so far because you realized I didn't do that, here we are. So that'll appease that. So now we're going from this track that we recorded all the way before it hits the stereo bus. It's going into bus number 3. Bus number 1 and 2 is where I was trying to get this situated before, and this is a better version over here. So now what we're doing is we're running out of channel 1 into auxiliary 3 or bus 3. And then from there, we're going out to the stereo bus. But before we do that, we're doing another like sub out of bus 3 into bus 4, which is where we're having a few other effects. Now, this is where the actual like chorusing and doubling is going to happen. This is still just treating the microphone itself. So now, having said that, let's turn off the gate. And you'll hear that. You've already heard that. So now we'll clamp it down on the gate. Cool. So you'll hear that just like that. And then let's go to equalization. So now what we have here is we have compressed vocal. Now I scrolled through, like you can click these guys and it scrolls through all the presets. Like you can dial in a little bit of stuff, and I did dial in a little bit of stuff, but I wanted it to be as preset friendly as possible just so there's not a lot of guesswork. So compressed vocals, like we don't need all that low end in there, but we want to boost it around, you know, where the male voice, the like the real meat of the do's is going to be. And then we have a little dip through the mid range since that doesn't fully matter. And we're kicking a lot of harmonics and stuff in there anyway. And then to further the click, the high end, like the tongue on the roof of the mouth, like all the dynamic elements of the voice itself, we boosted it back there around 5K and beyond. So then let's hear that. So gate with no EQ. Then gate with EQ. And you can start to hear it's already starting to get the color that we need. You know, like it's starting to sound more like what you think the record should sound like. So let's close those two out just to make room. Now we go into compressor. Before we go into compressor, I'll show you where that was. So we'll go here. We'll just go into EQ. It's the regular channel EQ, stereo. So now let's do the same thing with compressor. We go into dynamics. We go into compressor. Nothing to it. Right there. So let's get it up here. So the same thing. I went through here. Let's pause the track for a second. So I went through and figured out, I mean, I tried every preset and there's tons of them. I wanted to try voice first because obviously it's a vocal track. But then I wound up finding some good pay dirt here, I guess, with the pumping thing, because the nature of this particular track is a pumping track. It's a lot of silence and then a lot of noise, a lot of silence, a lot of noise. So following that train of thought, this actually worked out beautifully. So let's play it without that. So this is just raw track with equalization and with the gate, and we're about to add this in. So let's play it. So that's without the compressor, and this is where the magic starts to happen. So it really starts to thump it where it needs to thump. Unfortunately, with this particular track, it has the handling noise of the mic, so the little bit of static there too. But you're starting to hear what it sounds like, so that's pretty cool. So from there, we go into the exciter, which is the path to that. Is you pull up the effects, you go down to specialized, and you go to exciter, stereo. And I knew I wanted to draw out the clicky stuff, the air. So like what I keep saying about the tongue on the roof of the mouth and all that stuff happens on the high end. We're recreating with this effect, we're recreating the sound. Remember, if it was a kick drum, the sound of the actual beater of the kick pedal hitting the batter head of the kick drum. So we want the click. So there's the click and the body. So with the compression and with the equalization, we've gotten the body situated. So now let's get the air, let's get the nuance going. And so the preset here was sizzle, because you see it starts to do what it's going to do around 12,000 hertz, which is pretty high. But this is one of the things that adds in the magic. So let's play it.
Do 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 do.
So you've heard that. It's now gated. It's now equalized. It's now compressed. And so we're going to add in the sizzle.
Do 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 do. Do 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 do.
So you're starting to hear a little bit of a lot of the high end snaps. The actual snaps. Nice. Cool. So that's that. So that is still effectively dry in regard to, we've just done dynamic effects so far. So what we're going to do here is the time-based stuff, which is we're going to throw out of bus 3 into bus 4, and we've got a +4 volume out of there into bus 4. And so from there, let's close this. We're going to add in a multi-press, multi-compression. So dynamics, multi-compressor, multi-pressor, sorry, stereo. So from there, well, let's turn it on, or let's get it here. And so ironically, think about strings. So strings, anything, you have the low end, the body, and then you have the top end. And nothing really says that more really than strings, because with strings you have, like, think of a cello, for instance. You have the low end, pure, rich, awesome stuff, but then you kind of want to hear the bow like rubbing on the strings. You kind of want to hear the nuanced sound of fingers sliding down the fretboard and all over the fretboard also. Like, you want to hear that top end clarity while you're hearing the low end rich thing. So it's really no surprise that the preset for string compressor is the thing that helped us bring out the what we're trying to get a little bit more of out of this particular track, which is the low end body and then the snap of like the actual mechanical noises of your mouth. Again, I started here on this, and I went through the drum stuff. Punchy drums, fatness, all that stuff. But then that accentuated the low end far too much, and we're trying to get a full percussive sound out of this. So when I hit the string compressor, it was like magic. So let's play it as you've heard it so far.
Do 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 do.
Then we'll add in this.
Do do do.
Oh man,
do.
It's really starting to wake it up.
Do 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 do.
But now we still don't have like what you hear on the record, which is like the doubled wide left, wide right thing, with a lot of people, like the gang vocal approach. So we're going to go to modulation. We went to ensemble and stereo. So let's pull this guy out here. And actually, it sounds good with just 2 voices here. And I didn't do anything else to any of this. It's just vintage dimension. And again, you scroll through all of them to taste, find out what you like. But for me, it landed beautifully right here. So now let's play it gated, EQ'd, compressed, excited, multi-pressed over here in the other bus. And now we're going to do ensemble.
Do 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 do.
Here we go.
Do 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 do.
Yeah.
Do 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 do. Do 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 do.
Cool. So now we're getting it a little wider and a little thicker. It's all about the thickness when it's down there because it's filling up an entire section of the frequency response of this particular song. So last up, we need some vocal effects to really sell what we're doing here. So we went to multi-effects and then step effects, stereo. So we're almost there. And I'll show you in just a second, I did some tweaking here. But we found vocal rhythm, and it has a modulation, it has filters, it has distortion, reverb, delay, all sorts of stuff. It's a multi-effects processor. So there was some tweaking that I had to do here. I'll show you that in a second. So let's play it without it, and then I'll add it in halfway through like we've been doing so far. So it's really starting to sound like the record, but we need a little more thickness, a little more bounce in it. Here we go. So that's where I landed on that. So what we wound up doing is I played with the mix a little bit. That wasn't quite there. But I mean, none of these things, I mean, so far we've done pretty well with the presets, but you know, sometimes you got to do it. So we mixed the output and the mix a little bit. And then I believe I messed with some of the modulation just a touch. But all this stuff is to taste. You know what you're trying to make it sound like. So this effect will get you close enough. And then if you have to do a little bit of tweaking, you do a little bit of tweaking. But you can do the heavy lifting of your tweaking with the mix ratios, with the feedback ratios, and the mix and the master here, and the output of the whole track. And then you can hear a little more slap back in the left than the right. That's done here. So you can just blend anything you want to taste. But if you take a look at this is where I landed. So I'll play that one more time. Okay. So just for kicks, I'm going to walk you through here with all this stuff turned off one more time. And then slowly turn everything back on, and we're going to build it live right here. This is so weak and foolish sounding like this. But it's beautiful. The effects that you can add really change the game. So here we go. There we go. So that is Uptown Funk. So we're going to have some SM58 side stage. We're going to step over and sing into them in that particular part. So now let's scroll up here to Let's Groove. And I want you to hear that dry. And I will say it's a little bit cheating here because the sound for us is going to be about the same. The only thing I'm going to change here is I like 4 voices in the ensemble for this particular track. And I don't know why it's not going. Hang on. There it is. So when we get there, we'll get there. So again, let's just hear the dry track, just singing straight into the SM58. Right there. Down, the boogie, down, down, we're going down. The boogie, down, down, we're going down. The boogie, down, down, we're going down. The boogie, down, down. I got to look up those words because I don't think that's exactly the words. So I'll check that out before we go live. But I've already shown you where all this stuff is. So let's just kind of turn it on as we go through, and you'll start to hear it thicken up. Down, the boogie, down, down, we're going down. The boogie, down, down, we're going down. The boogie, down. And I'll stop it here actually, because you hear when the exciter kicks in, you can actually hear the sound, the same sound from Uptown Funk of the kind of the tongue in the back of your right behind your teeth to do the duh. Like, so it's a little percussive here too, the down, down. You hear the click of again, the kick drum and the body. So down, the boogie down. So it's like that. And so the exciter really brings out the tick of that, which is going to add a really neat element in the moment. So from there, we just do the multipressor, and then we do the effects again, and then we're home free. Here we go. Down, the boogie down, down, we're going down. The boogie down, really brings it out. We're going down. The boogie down, down, we're going down. The boogie down, down, down. The boogie down, and one more. Down, we're going down. The boogie down, down, we're going down. The boogie down, down, we're going down. The boogie down, down. It's really fascinating what effects can do to a track. A dry, simple SM58 can really sound awesome if you do all the right stuff to it. So I'm going to add it through here one more time, and then we'll jump back out and I'll say goodbye. Down, the boogie down, down, we're going down. The boogie down, down, we're going down. The boogie down, down, we're going down. The boogie down, down. The crazy thing about this, before we jump out of here, is that with time-based effects, with kind of pitch stuff in them, you have to sing them perfectly. What I wound up doing when I tracked this track is I just went from memory and sang it, and the pitch was not really quite there. So all these things that were gathering the pitch and doing crazy things to them, as I would drift, the delay delays what you put into it, like it just repeats what you put into it. So you got to put the right things into it. But you probably know that with any guitar effects or any time-based effects on any instrument or any vocal you've ever touched, the input has to be exactly right. So what I did, I went to Spotify and sang along with the intro and then muted Spotify to keep the tune in my head and sang all of this. And so when you get the right pitch, the right tune in there, you can really do a lot of things. Otherwise, if you start adding these effects to a bad take, it gets a lot worse, a lot faster. So that's a little tip for the day. Otherwise, that's how I did it. So if you have any questions, leave them in the comments and reach out, and I'll try to address them. And I've had fun doing this, so I hope we get to do a lot of these in the future. And that's how I set it up. So it's not perfect. It's not exactly true to life to the records themselves, but it'll get the job done for the gig. If we were going to do these songs all the time, we'd go a little deeper, go a little further with actually getting it fully true to life, what the records are and what people are used to hearing on the records. But we're close enough and we're going to have a good time. So thank you so much for joining. Thanks for tuning in. If you've made it this far, thank you for following me all the way through to the end. And don't forget to grab your free copy of my book, EQ Basics, Your Blueprint to a Better Mix. That's doitjustlikeapro.com/EQ book. I hope you'll grab that, and I hope it changes the way for the better that you equalize any vocals or instruments from here on out. So until I see you again, get out there and sound just like a pro. Thank you so much.